The Kama Sutra is full of some interesting sex positions, but how many of them are actually any good? Let's find out. My name is Stirling Cooper. I'm an award-winning adult film star. I'm a former high-class male companion, and I'm here to help you improve your sex life. In today's video, we're going to be going over some sex positions, and we're going to be putting them into a tier ranking system. Now, we did this before with some basic sex positions, and you guys enjoyed that video so much, I decided to do a second one. But in today's one, we're going to go into some more interesting and unique positions than we did last time. Now, we're going to rank these sex positions according to 3 different criteria. We're going to give them a score out of 10 based upon that, and then the total score will determine where they end up on my tier ranking system. Those 3 criteria are going to be: 1, how easy it is to get her off in that position. 2, how easy it is to get me off in that position. And 3, how strenuous, how much effort is actually required for me to maintain and perform that sex position. So the 5 tiers we have today are Turbogasm at the top, followed by Boner Town, and then Averagely Average. Then at the bottom here we have Sad Face, and at the very bottom we have Doo-Doo tier. And it's important to keep track of things. So the first position we're going to look at today is the 69er. Now, most of you will know what the hell 69er is. You laying down, and then her laying on top of you, flipped around in verse, so you're performing oral sex on each other. Now, this 69er is one of these positions, man, which it sounds better than it actually is. You know why that is? It's because women get distracted. Everyone thinks that women can multitask. They can't, right? So when you're like eating her pussy, if she's sitting on your face and then she's sucking your dick at the same time, if you're doing a good job, then she's typically doing a bad job. And if she's doing a good job, then you're probably distracted and doing a bad job. So she can't really focus on like giving you a good BJ in that position if you're eating her pussy properly as well. Great. It doesn't really like just give me a BJ, or just lay down and I'll eat your pussy. Let's not complicate things. Let's just focus on one thing at a time here, lady. That's my personal opinion on the 69er. But let's get autistic about it and let's rank it. In terms of pleasure for her, like I said, because she's doing something with my dick, because she's like distracted, it takes away her ability to focus on what I'm actually doing. So in terms of like getting her off, and also she's the wrong way around for me to focus on actually eating her pussy properly. Like my entire technique and my ability to like get a girl off through cunnilingus, which I'm very, very good at, relies on her being the correct way up, shall we say. I have control on the upward flick of my tongue rather than the downward flick of my tongue. That's just how I've trained it. So in my personal opinion, I think most guys are the same, if I'm being brutally honest. Out of 10, how good is this position for her? It's a 3 out of 10, man. It's not that fantastic. Like, I think most women would probably agree with this too. It's more of just a fun thing to do than like, okay, we're actually trying to get each other off. This is the kind of thing that like you do when you're like a young person and you're like still exploring sex. You're like, let's do a 69er. And then you do it a few times and you're like, this actually isn't that good, And then in terms of how pleasurable it is for me, 4 out of 10. Sometimes, occasionally, you'll get like the random woman who actually gives a BJ better in that position than like the other way around. When that happens, then this is the go-to position for you, my friend. But it's pretty rare that it happens. And then in terms of ease, well, this is like an 8 out of 10. I'm just laying down. But I also have to, unless I put a pillow under my neck, like to get my face right up in her parts, I have to like strain my neck to get it up there. It's like, I've got to keep my neck elevated the whole time. It's not as comfortable as it could be, right? So that gives it a total score of 15, which lumps it in the averagely average category right here. Moving on, we have the facing pretzel position next. In the Kama Sutra, this is referred to as the Om position. It's not O-M. One of these weird ones that they come up with in the Kama Sutra. Basically, all it is like, you're sitting there cross-legged. You, the man, are sitting there cross-legged, and then she sits on top of you and wraps her legs around you. There's nothing really going on. Like, there's no, like, there's really little, unless you have, even if you have a long penis, it's like, you still no real, you have to pick her up and stuff. It's like, you're in this position, you're expected to just, she's expected to just like grind, kind of like on your pole and do that a little bit. Man, look, in terms of getting her off, this is like a 4. Like, okay, she can grind a little bit, but there's way better positions to grind. Like her clitoris against your pelvic mount. Way better ones. You're not really getting any angles going on here. That's a 4 out of 10 in terms of her pleasure. In terms of the dude's pleasure, it's like a 2 out of 10. So what I'll say with this position, if you are a kind of guy, if you're like, if you're struggling to last longer, try this position. You're just sitting there. You know, there's not really much stimulation going on. So you'll definitely be able to add a few more minutes into your session time with this one. And then in terms of how comfortable it is, look, I'll give it an 8. If you're comfortable sitting cross-legged, that is. So you can just sit there, you know, enjoy, bide your time. So that gives this position a total of 14, which puts it in the sad face category. If you'd like to learn how to manipulate angles properly in the bedroom that lead to more orgasms for your partner, then I highly suggest you check out my video course right here. The next position we have is what I like to call the right angle triangle, or it's like it's a variation of elevated missionary position. So imagine you're in missionary position, and you can see the little emoji here that I'm talking about, and you're simply lifting her hips up off the bed, and you're sort of kneeling upright. What that does is it creates this kind of triangle with your bodies, and that allows your penis to actually penetrate at a good angle. It actually allows it to hit the G-spot in a better and a more improved angle than regular missionary position. So, ranking this, look, in terms of getting her off, I'd actually give this position a 9 out of 10. It's actually pretty effective. You know, provided you have the stamina, you can pull this off with a bit of strength and a bit of force and a bit of endurance. She can, because she's just sort of laying there. You're holding her up. You know, you're doing all the work, and like I said, you're penetrating at a pretty good angle. So I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10. In terms of my pleasure, give it a 5. I'll give it a 5 out of 10. Smack bang in the middle somewhere. You are doing some work, and it's not as grindy as regular missionary position. It's just straight penetrative, so it's very iffy, you know. So I'll give that a 5. In terms of comfort, though, you got to give it a 4 because you're holding her up the whole time, and it is entirely like based upon your effort. So you have to put the work in to actually make this position work, make this position bear any fruit. So that gives it a total of 18 out of a possible score of 30, which lumps it in the top end, near the top end of the averagely average category. Moving along, we have scissoring, or what you could call full layback. So it might be a bit hard to make it out from the diagram here, but imagine that she is basically laying back, and you're laying back, and then you pull your two bodies together. She can have her leg up here on your shoulder and her other leg down there. And we're basically scissoring thusly. Now, this requires your penis to basically point downwards at that angle rather than up or straight. You have to angle it downwards to even achieve this. Now, for some dudes who point naturally upwards, like me, that's not going to be the most comfortable thing in the world. However, it's not as bad as it could get. Now look, it's an interesting position to play around with, but in terms of purely just in terms of getting her off, you're looking at a 4 out of 10 for this. Really, it's not much better than that. And for getting the dude off, for getting me off, it's like 5 out of 10. Again, it's not ideal. It's really just for show. And then in terms of how comfortable it actually is, I'm going to give that a 7. A 7 out of 10. This will vary for every guy, but how comfortable is it for you with your penis angling down like that? For some dudes, that's going to be kind of unbearable. like you won't actually be able to do it. So for me personally, I give this like a 7 in terms of comfort. Of course, I am just laying there, and all I'm doing is pulling her legs into me and away from me. So it isn't super duper strenuous, but that gives it a score of 16, which puts it here in, again, averagely average territory. The next one is called the ballet dancer. It is also basically standing up missionary. So you're standing, she's standing, and you're holding onto one of her legs to obviously get access to her vagina. And this position is very dependent upon like your heights. If it actually works better if you two are kind of at the same height, or if she's wearing high heels. This is a good one to do. If she's still wearing her high heels, and she kind of doesn't mind like balancing on one leg. So it's a bit strenuous for her too, if I'm being totally honest. Or maybe if she's standing on like a step, so she's a little bit higher than she normally is, it'll allow you to get in there and actually do this position properly. If you're like way taller than her, like by a lot, this is going to be basically impossible. You have to physically pick her up, which makes it totally different. But in terms of her pleasure, look, I'm going to give this like a 5. 5. It's not terrible, and it's kind of passionate. It's passionate, it's kinky, it's intense. So that gives it like a 5 out of 10 for her. But in terms of me getting off, like 4. Again, it's not as good as regular missionary. It's not as good as the other ones we've just talked about. So that gets like a 4. In terms of strenuousness, in terms of effort, this gets like a 2 out of 10, man. And I know, because I've done this position in porn scenes. And like I said before, if the angles aren't exactly right in terms of your heights, like where your pelvis is and where her pelvis is, then this could be super, super like intense on your thighs, because you'll have to squat down. If you're a tall guy, you have to squat a little bit to even allow that angle of penetration, and it just like ruins the fun. So this gets like a 2 out of 10 to that, giving it a total score of 11, which puts it in the sad face category, ladies and gentlemen. Now, if you'd like to see more positions ranked according to the tier list, I suggest you check out part 1 of this video series right here.